Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Affinity Webinar with Cotney Consulting Group and Roofers Coffee Shop. My name is Heidi Ellsworth, and we have an amazing topic today on passing the torch and succession planning. I personally am very interested in this, and we have the expert, John Kenney, who works with contractors every day doing this. And we also have the next gen, Megan Ellsworth, here to talk about it from that perspective. So, of course, the chat is open. So please give us your information. Let us know where you're from. Any comments, emojis, whatever, as we go through, we will try to answer all of your questions. So let's get started. First of all, I'd like to do some introductions. Again, my name is Heidi Ellsworth. I'm the president of the coffee shops and so excited to be here. Megan, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Megan Ellsworth, the multimedia director here at the coffee shops, and I am just really excited to be talking about succession planning with you all.
I love it. And the star of the hour, John, can you
Oh,
introduce yourself?
I don't know about star of the hour, but I'm happy to introduce myself. I'm John Kenney. I'm the CEO of Cotney Consulting Group, and again, I'm happy to be here, and I think this is a fantastic topic to talk about today.
Yeah.
It, it is so good. It's so important for everything we need. Um, okay. So, like I said, the chat is open. You know who we are. So let's get started on really, John, why does it matter? Why does succession planning matter to a company and to the people involved?
Well, there's so much that's going on in our industry, and we forget about this is like the blocking and tackling portion of doing your business, right? If you don't have a good plan put in place, not many good things can happen. And I've even not to take it sideways, but just to put a little more emphasis and understanding. I've had a lot of people I've talked to and says, well, I don't need to worry about that because my goal is to sell the company off to either private equity or someone else in the next 5 to 10 years. You still got to worry about it. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I work with a lot of private equity doing analysts on their roofing companies, and the first thing they want to know is how deep is the bench strength? So what is how deep is the bench strength? That's succession planning right there at its core.
Yeah.
So I think it can be important enough to understand that. And also too, it's not just about, hey, 45 years from now, I'm young, I'm going to be ready to retire. No, it's about what happens to all your key positions if someone isn't there in your key position anymore. There's so much more to this than just thinking it's so far off, let's not worry about it. It's a generational shift. So it's not a generational shift, even though that's part of it. It is definitely your company's roadmap to success, regardless how you're going to run your company.
I agree. And we are actually in this process, John, with the coffee shops. Because, I don't want to talk about retirement. I love what I do way too much, but it is going to happen at some point. We are going to have to do it. And everybody had always kind of talked about making sure, 5 to 10 years out that you're really talking about this. So I agree with you. Succession planning, no matter when you do it, or how you do it, it's not just if you're like someone like myself or some of the leadership, we have the coffee shops who probably are going to want to retire in 5 to 10 years. But it's also about, people may want to retire in their mid 40s. They may want to sell their business. So having a succession plan of how that works with your leadership, I think is so important.
Yeah, and I like what you said too, John, about you need a plan whether you want to sell to private equity or you're passing it on to the next person. Either way, you need some sort of plan, some sort of idea of how that's going to look, how the transition of power is going to look, what that effect is going to take on your employees and how the legacy of your company lives on, whether that's through, the next generation, selling to employees, or, selling to private equity. One way or another, you need a plan.
Absolutely.
I think too, I think, as we're talking about it, there are certain triggers that bring that on. That people, I can tell you 5 years ago, when we would talk about, succession planning, I just get this upset stomach because I was like, no,
Hmm.
no, whereas now we're really, certain things are triggering it that we're going, okay, we need to make some of these plans, especially with everything that's happening in the industry and the economy overall. What do you see as some of the triggers for succession that owners should be aware of?
Well, I mean, you got, like I said, the biggest problem, and again, I do going from either first generation or second generation to third has been the common thought process in succession planning, but it's way more than that. What it has to be is you got to look at it whether you're a first generation owner building your business or you're the second generation, and anybody that's taken a business over without the proper planning knows exactly what I'm going to say. You had to fly by the seat of your pants because the person before you, that's exactly how they ran the company until you were able to get a grasp of it. Even though you may have been there for 20 years working alongside, it's never the same. So really the way to look at this is to be able to say, hey, how does my business run if I'm not here today? And then just keep going down the line. What happens if? Those are the questions if you ask and start going down from the top. Because like you said, Heidi, I'm like you. I really don't want to retire, but someday I'm going to. And also,
Mhm.
too, another way of looking at it is no one wants to get sick. No one wants to miss time. No one wants anything, but things happen. That's life. So to be the best thing you can do in your business is be prepared through having systems, processes, and people. It's all three, and understanding there's a plan to all three so that they all reach the common goal. So that if tomorrow we wake up and something changes, their map is already there on what we do to proceed. And that is really the best way of being prepared for succession planning.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. And actually, Wendy put in the chat, Wendy Marvin, hey Wendy. I love the talk to talk about succession planning of individual job titles too, as John mentioned, and defining each job slash procedure clearly for the next people. That's so true. Especially, I mean, Heidi, you've been talking a lot about upskilling your talent and upskilling
Yeah.
your employees. If you want to continue upskilling your people, then documenting every part of their job not only will help you, down the road of succession planning, but being able to move people up so you can backfill those positions easily and the training won't be as maybe or as intense potentially.
And I think I'm Megan, I'm thinking about overall the companies, and to Wendy's point, into what John is saying, you have certain people of a generation who are going to retire. And if you aren't doing the succession planning for those individuals, not just the overall company or the sell of the company or the transition of ownership, but for those people, all that knowledge is lost. And I think of you, John, I think how much knowledge you have, and with all of your years of working
Yeah.
for contractors and running operations, running everything, when you left, so much of that knowledge leaves with you. And how do you capture that for that succession?
By having good systems and processes in place and proper documentation. A lot of people, when they get into succession planning, they think about it as valuation of my company. Okay, how am I going to be able to sell it? What does that look like? How do I get my exit plan in place? That's more being ready for sale. Okay. Succession planning, truly, when you boil it down to what matters to be successful for all that other stuff to happen, is exactly what Wendy just touched on even a second time on what we were talking about and that you talked about, Megan. It is having all these positions in place. And you're looking at it today. How do you become great? You build a fantastic team, right? And you build yourself up, and everyone in the company knows what they're doing and they move on. But the way to look at it from the succession side of it is how do I continue to build a good team when something's missing on the team? It's like a pro sports team. What happens to them if they don't have a good plan in place and they're not continually having a plan to bring in new talent? They're a super organization for what, 5 years, maybe 10 years, if that's a dynasty. And then they disappear for the next 5 to 10 years while they rebuild. So look at it that way. The whole idea is to never have that cycle end, that you're always on top because you've got all your talent lined up and how they do things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I want to bring back to that because this third bullet point about business growth requiring new leadership structure. We are in the midst of that right now here at the coffee shops. We are growing. We have a new coffee shop, outdoor coffee shop. We're going to be on a little sneak peek to everybody. We're going to be announcing RoofersCoffeeShop.uk going into the new year. So, how are we succession planning to allow for that growth and to making sure that we are, to Megan's point, bringing all those people up? Because I think growth, even though we're all looking at the economy, part of that dealing with the economy is also being able to diversify and to grow as we go through it. And so, Megan, as you see all of this talent um, and all of this that that has to happen, whether you're in a roofing company or in a media group like we are, that is key to that next generation.
Yeah. I just have to shout out Alana, who just said patiently awaiting for RCS Caribbean.
We'll have to visit. We'll have to visit a couple
We'll
times.
talk.
Yeah.
But no, that's so true. I think um as much as I mean we're all here to talk about succession planning, but as important as having a plan is, you also kind of need to realize that plan needs to be somewhat flexible. You can't be hard and fast on a plan because then you're limiting yourself in some cases of limiting growth or limiting a certain job or positions to stay where they are and not grow and evolve and change. And Wendy said, and letting go of our own reins to allow that next level talent to run. Yeah, totally. I think, um, while you have to have that structure, that kind of the bones, and then that allows, the muscles and the skin to grow and change and evolve, slowly, if that made
Yeah.
sense.
No, I think that that totally makes sense. And we kind of got ahead of ourselves because we're talking about the different types of planning. So we were already going there. But let's just kind of go back to, because Megan, you're right. If you don't have the right structure, right? Whether that's bone, skin, or whatever. But if you don't have
Yeah.
the right structure going, you're not going to be, or and a flexible plan, you're not going to be able to move wherever. What happens if tomorrow somebody comes and offers you a big number to buy you? What do you do? So, John, talk a little bit about these different types of mental succession planning.
Yeah, so family succession and generational transfer, of course, what happens in that is that's got more heart in it, decision making, than probably anything else. And it's common, right? But the
Hmm.
problem that we're facing today is there's less and less actual going to be family successions of businesses, especially in our industry today, than there was 5 decades ago. And let's go back and let's look at that for understanding of it. Back when it was very common in the roofing industry to go from one generation to another, which is not quite as common today, even though I applaud everybody that has been a generational business from one generation to another. The reason why they always say first generation has success, second generation, there's a certain percentage of failure, and then getting it beyond that, even the failure rate continues to grow. And it's not really to look at and say, well, that means that the offspring, each generation, didn't have the same abilities as the generation who started it. Yeah, that could be true. But more than likely, what's happened and what I found and seen happen, and especially working with that today, going from that first to second or second to third, is there was no processes, procedure, and understanding to take what made that business successful under the current generation running
Mm,
it and how to get that over so it's an open book to the next team taking it over
Yep.
because it's a mindset, right? And if you can't know what's in my mind unless I have a plan for you to know what's in my mind. So I think that's probably one of the things that you got to think about. So if you can't go for succession planning in your own family business or some in generational transfer, management buyouts, employee ownership, that's a lot of planning and that's a lot more even financial type of setting up to do. But again, I recommend that you don't even consider getting too deep dive in with the accountants on how do we make this work until you make sure your house is in order. Because if it's not in order, it's not going to work. Sale to another contractor or private. I know I'm going through the bullet points. I don't normally do that, but you have them on here and it makes it easy. The next group, right? Sale to another contractor or private equity. Private equity is going to come in for two reasons. One is they're buying you out because they're going to flip you and get rid of you and they don't care. So that's be like, well, do I really want that to happen to my company? Or private equity is going to come in as a partner. And if they come in as a partner, which is what most of the contractors are looking for out there, then they absolutely are going to deep dive into what your current org chart looks like, management structure, and what your bench strength looks like, and what your plan for the next 5 to 10 years. And everyone thinks it's got to do with sales. No, it really doesn't, because I know because I do a lot of this for them. It's really about, well, what happens if? That's always the question. What happens if? And you put your next sentence behind if, and you try to get an answer. Then the other thing is mergers and strategic partnerships. When you're looking at mergers and strategic partnerships, they absolutely become no different than bringing in a family member. The only difference is it's a family member with money. And when you're looking, why am I saying family member? Because they're going to have that kind of control over what you're doing. So you have to be prepared for that. And you've got to look at your business, any one of these four categories, you got to look at your business as its own living entity. That entity must go on regardless who's sitting in these different positions. And I know that may sound cold or callous thinking about it, but it's not, because the people are what's real. The
Mhm.
company is just the structure, and that structure should be able to go on if you've got it built correctly to put different people in different seats as time progresses.
Yeah.
You, go ahead, Megan.
Oh, no, you, Heidi.
I was just going to say, well, John, you have us both thinking. We're like, um, one of the things that I personally experienced that I'm sure other owners out there have experienced is you get kind of caught up in that, okay, well, we're going to get everything ready. We operate on the EOS system, and so we've been doing this for a number of years now, trying to get our house in order, right? Getting everything the way we wanted it. And I think we have some great system process. We have great bench strength. We have all of those different things. But what I realized is we were getting so caught up in thinking about, oh, what if somebody wants to buy us, or what if they want to come and talk to us, that we almost started losing sight of what was important, right? And what is important is that business and making the business run and doing the right things to that then people will come back around. And I think as you look at this and you look at these types of succession plans, it is important to not get caught up in either any one of them, but just to get your business in line, have all the right things in place, like you're saying, and then really look to the future. And it will kind of, it seems like it kind of starts showing itself. Have you seen that with other contractors?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I say you got to have your mindset set correct on this. I've had contractors say, well, how do I get my best deal? How do I be able to structure my best merger deal and all that? Well, really, I can tell you this much. When anybody's going to come in and invest in your company or complete buyout, whatever it may be, they're going to look at what you've done to have a good succession plan put in place and your systems and your processes and all the things that go along with that. And I will tell you this, if you don't have it in place, that's why this comes first. If you don't have it in place, your absolute sales price or your buyout price or your stock shares, whatever the deal may be, because there's 1,000 ways they structure these deals when they go in, is going to be lower. Why is it going to be lower? Because I can tell you, even from my end, I get hired to go in and do these things. And I will tell you right now that no one's doing that out of the goodness of their heart. It's actually the owner, the company themselves is paying through the deal somehow. So that's my best advice, is to have that mindset of saying, whether it's any one of these four types is where my goal is, which you got to have a goals. I get that. But always remember, a goal is nothing more than a dream unless you have a plan in place. And this is actually your plan to make that goal more than just a dream. This is where it starts.
Hmm. That that great advice, John. And I think to add on to that, one thing that I, as a team leader right now, have been working on is making sure that all of my teammates and people under me know what each other does, right? And so that's part of building the bones of your succession plan is making sure each of your teams, each cluster, whatever you have in your company, aren't it's not reliant on who the people are, it's what the roles are, like John said, the bones. And do each of those roles know why the other roles are there and what the other roles are doing? And making sure that you can start with that foundation, so that way if you need to pass it down, or someone's coming in, and if the people aren't there, the roles, like there's documented processes for each role, and explanations of what everyone else is doing too, to understand the full picture.
Yeah. So
Let me just
go ahead.
tap on one thing that you said, Megan. That's a great way of looking at it by knowing what everybody does and just tying the whole thing up is you can have family succession plan in place as far as ownership, stocks, the money, the assets, but is your family the one that's actually going to run the business? That's a great question to ask because a lot of times it's not. There's a lot of family corporations out there that even outside of the roofing and construction world that are set up where the family may have a lot of decision making, the money behind it, but they're not the ones running it. So that's the first thing you got to think about is, where am I going to take this as far as succession planning goes, keeping maybe within the family, but yet I know the family's not, they don't have the interest in running it. So who's going to fill that position? And that may be your key person that you have now, which they've got to be a part of everything that you do when you're planning this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So important. And we have Nathan. Thank you so much for being here, Nathan. He is the owner of Engineered Architecturals, and he's actually looking to purchase. So he's on the other side looking to purchase some metal cladding business, and is interested in want to learn what a great succession deal looks like for the owners and the right way to approach the process. So that takes us right to our next step. So perfect. John, in answering kind of that, what helping Nathan on what to look for in the deal, but also the key steps in the process of how that works.
Yeah, they go hand in hand because what Nathan wants to do is go in and take a look at somebody he's looking at purchasing, and he wants to know what it should look like. And then at the same point as we're discussing that, it tells the person that's looking at what do I need to do? It's the same thing, right? So it all goes ties in hand in hand. The biggest thing is go back to the three basics, right? Look at your systems, your processes, and your people. So, what is a system? System is usually software or how it happens, something like that. So, it has to have a process behind it. So, process is the fact of how does everything run in my company, right? Any company. And then, of course, the people are the people who run it. So, bottom line is the systems shouldn't really change, even though we love to always buy new software and we'll hear about it. But bottom line is, however we're going to make that decision, that's pretty much now, this works with our people, it works with our processes. So we have our systems in place. Our processes, once they're in place, like for someone like Nathan going in, they should be to the point where they're reviewed every single year on a minimum yearly basis in a company, but not updated once they're in place. They shouldn't be updated any more than once a year, 6 months if something changes. The biggest problem people make with putting processes in place is they think every month or every other week they've got to tweak them, make changes. Well, no,
So
that
true.
causes havoc. Then the
Yeah.
people, the way to look at the people in the company, if I was just the same, if I was going in and analyzing a company, I will talk to the people. Why do I talk to the people? I find out how they do their job. And then I say, well, how do you do your job? And I'm maybe interviewing four people from the same department. And if they're all doing it the same, then I know the systems and processes work. If I'm getting
Mm,
four different answers, then I know there's probably not really good systems or processes, or either one or both. Then I got to look into that. So to kind of wrap that together and make it make more sense, if I'm going to look at a business the same way Nathan's going to go look at it, one, I want to talk to the people and find out how they're doing their jobs, right? Make sure there's an even flow. Because bottom line, it should come down to no matter who I'm talking to, if everyone's rolling in the same direction, I could pick them up out of the seat and move them somewhere else, and it's going to continue. The way to look at a company, if they have good systems and processes in place, this is key. Any company should be able to call up a temporary agency that knows nothing about what they do. And the person, now this isn't technical out putting roofs down. This is administrative, the normal flows of a company processes. Sit in that seat and within 4 hours know exactly how to perform the job they've been brought in to do. That's a successful
Wow.
product.
yeah.
I
Okay.
hope everyone wrote that down.
We have some work to do.
Yeah.
Within 4 hours, everybody knows what they can do. But I totally get that. And I think that really goes with that, this first bullet point of start planning early. And people had always told me that, and I, didn't always kind of understand that. But I'm how you are bringing that starting early isn't starting just at accession plan. This is what we're going to do. This is who we're going to sell to, blah, blah. It is about getting the right structure, systems, and processes in your business so that you're positioned to then start implementing a succession plan because that's what people are looking for. And I think one of my questions, and Megan, I think this really kind of hits to this next generation, is even more important, but is culture. I mean, and that we don't hear a whole lot about that. We hear a lot about systems and processes and everything in that buying process, or selling process. But if you don't have a good culture in that company, isn't it easy to kind of fall and it's not a good cultural fit with the buyer and the seller? it seems like we're seeing some things out there right now, John, with some of these private equity deals, some different things that are just falling apart because the cultures don't match.
Yeah, was that a kick over to me?
Yeah. Sorry, John.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
then we'll go
wasn't
to
sure you
Megan.
thought
Yeah.
Megan. So, no doubt about it. I think there's a higher percentage of deals that are falling apart than anybody imagined. And I'm also seeing a lot of buyer's remorse out there. And there's also, I see a lot of deals that were put together very well and people are happy and they're moving forward. But usually what happens is if you don't have all these things in place, your plans, there's no way of anybody coming in to be able to match cultures because the only thing that you are concentrating on is the deal, the deal, sealing the deal. That's the main thing. Really, that should just be the final step in this. And usually I found very few companies that have poor culture in them if everything else is being done right. Usually the poorest culture I see in companies is because most people don't know what they're doing or things change erratically on a consistent basis. People, b believe it or not, most people can handle change. Not that they, whether they like it or not. Why do I say handle change? If it is structured change, it's usually for the good thing because people realize that their job has become more efficient. I never want to say easier because nothing's ever easier. But if your job becomes more efficient by having all these plans and steps in place, you become happier at what you do and you're not wasting your time. Nobody likes to waste their time. And usually when you find companies with poor culture, it's because there's a lot of wasted time. Why am I doing this? Because someone else is going to tell me it's wrong. It goes up, someone else changes what I'm doing. I'm doing this week, but next week I'm doing it now. And I just saw, well, it's not my fault. No one's ever respect, when anyone says that it's not my fault, you usually can say it is your fault, okay? Because that's usually the first blanket that goes up is trying to blame somebody else. But the whole key in that is really let's just review this real quick. Start planning early. You have to, right? You got to decide on what you want to do. Usually your financial and legal frameworks, those are pretty much wish list items. And when I say wish list, they're pretty much structured framing because until you really get up to what the final decision on what that end exit's going to be, it's still going to change. But everything else can really get in place up to that point. And I don't want to think about it and I've done this. I've been on succession teams and planned with different people. And I never want to look at this as looking at it strictly by all the people that are here today. I want to look at it and say, this is my team, but what happens if they're not here? And that has nothing to do with being a disastrous idea. It has to do with how many people family pulls them to another area of the country. They can no longer work for you. Things happen. An elderly parent gets ill and they got to leave the workforce for a couple of years. Things just happen in life. So the point is, I always want my team with me. But what happens? How do we guarantee that the rest of the team doesn't go underwater because part of the team isn't here anymore?
That's a really good point. That's such a good point. And I think that goes back to the bones, not to mention that again, but like you said, the bones of your plan and being able to having that documentation in place so you can hire that temp person and they can learn that job in 4 hours. That is so true because I think also having the culture of it's okay, you can come back when you're ready is something that the younger generation takes it like really much so admires and respects and enjoys having that the sense that your company cares for you as a person before they care for you as an employee matters a lot to the younger generation coming into the workforce, already in the workforce. And so having that as a part of your succession plan and kind of having your employees as a forefront thought for your succession plan is important. They don't want to feel like they're just, you know, damaged goods getting sold to the next person or what have you. Yeah, so that's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, so true. And I think that really comes when you look at building that strong transition team, right? You want, and I think I just want to kind of start with this in a transition team. there's a couple different phases of transition teams. And I'm sure, John, you'll go over that. But there's the one that's right now that's like, we just want to make sure our company, do you have the leadership in place who can get your company in a position that it can be handed off to the next generation or sold or whatever it may be? And also, do you have then know what kind of transition team you need when you are to that point? So, John, talk a little bit about those different types of transitions and the importance of planning.
So let's start out with, are we ready to plan, right? Where do we start? So first thing is to take a look at yourself. If you're an owner of a company or you're in a senior management position, if you're still micromanaging your entire company, then you're not ready to start succession planning yet. That means you got to get your house in order. Okay, that's number one. Um, if we went ahead and looked at this about now it's time to go and plan, I like to take my owners, the one that's going to be leaving, lack of a better word, or transitioning out, have only a certain more of an overview role in the planning process because you don't want that to be the only ideas on the table. All right. Yes, they have to be satisfied and they've got a lot of wisdom and knowledge, but that wisdom and knowledge becomes more valuable as the process goes along. When you bring a group of people in your transitional scene, which are usually your senior management or your top people in your positions, and I hate to use titles because VPs and all that, that doesn't really mean anything. It matters about what they're doing within your company, key personnel. That's your team. Okay. You say to them, you know what? John's going to retire or John's thinking of selling out in 10 years, whatever it may be, whatever the reason, why are we starting this? Our goal is to do what? Make sure this company can fit into whatever the next steps is. Because here's the key why I say next steps. My goal could be retire in 10 years, but in 8 years, a good deal comes along and it's a private equity sellout. So you got to think about that because nothing is ever written in stone. But these plans should be able to adjust for whatever that final end game is on the legal transfer side of it.
Wow. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I was just gonna say that that's so true, and I think also having that the plan to kind of start if you're like the owner, the VP executive, de-escalating your role over time and how does the transition over the next 10 years, what does that look like? Maybe, in the next 5 years, you're still like running the business, very active. You kind of need to be there like every day, except for the holidays, obviously. And then the 5 years after that, maybe you come in 3 days a week, and you're transitioning things off onto that transition leadership team and other things, and looking at how you as an owner are rolling off some of your responsibilities.
We've seen that a lot. I've seen that a lot with very successful contractors who really, incorporated the EOS system, got their leadership in place, and then they started pulling out of the day to day and were able to let that leadership team really take a role and make it happen. And those tend to be, I mean, if I'm looking at a lot of the companies, and John, you see a lot more than I do, but a lot of the companies I see out there, those tend to be the ones who have done better with the private equity groups.
Yeah, and even do better within their own bottom line. I mean, you
Mhm.
don't absolutely do not have to, most roofing contractors I talk to out there, they'd like to maybe go with private equity, but then they've heard horror stories. It's like anything else. It's the good, the bad, the ugly, right? But the nice thing about putting this in place, and you got to set some time limits. Putting your initial succession plan together with your team should not be years. You should be able to have something within 6 months that you're ready to start to kick around, and within a
Wow.
year, within another 6 months, 3 months after
Wow.
that, it's pretty much in plan.
Mhm.
Now, key to that is then you're having review meetings, which are not every week. You might do them quarterly. They could be half year, depending on the growth and the change within the company. And that plan has got to be a living document that we can say, okay, well, we need to adjust this because what pertained 2 years ago no longer matters now. We need to change this section, but you're not always going back to square zero. It's like anything else. If you build a solid foundation, it's a matter of interchanging. Oh, look at a house. Oh, I don't want these windows anymore. I'm going to put some new windows in. It's not a big deal. You don't tear the house down, right? You go do
Hmm.
what? You take out the window, you put a new window in. Maybe you got to cut the size a little bit bigger, a little bit more trim, but it's not a life-threatening to the house, right? Same way to your business. It cannot be life-threatening. So again, EOS, all the systems that are out there, they all come back to pretty much one model, which a long time ago came to be, which is Jim Collins's theory of good to great, because that's what they all base themselves off of. And when you boil all that down, because I like to boil everything down, because if not, you get bogged down. What it
Totally.
comes down to is that exact theory. Whatever you want to call it, it's basically you move yourself from being that micromanager of everything to working on your business, not in it anymore. And you're basically think of yourself as floating above it. That's why they always say 30,000 foot view. You're floating above and other people are working in your business. And your job is to steer direction. That's it.
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah,
great.
the question is, how did someone get there? I know I want you to explain more, John, on how that owner, that CEO, that president goes from working in the business to working on the business and training up the next people so that they can take over for that person.
Well, I recommend that anybody that doesn't know how to delegate, which is the biggest problem that happens, is why you become a micromanager.
Ah,
You don't know how to delegate. Learn how to delegate. And then you must trust the delegation. Okay?
mm,
People are going to make bad decisions. They're learning skills. You don't want a bad decision because they don't have the right information to make it. But one thing that is true, what's worse than a bad decision is always no decision at all because the outcome is always going to be awful. So people will learn. So you have to allow your team to grow. And allowing them to grow is by having, again, I hate to keep going back to this, but you got to have good standard operating procedures. You have to have it. A job description is probably the most misused and poorly used document in any industry because it's done from an HR's perspective of using it as more of a disciplinary tool than anything else when you really break it
mm,
down. This is what you're supposed to do. That's where SOPs really come into play. They're not a job description. If you're using your job description as your operating procedure, you're missing the whole purpose. Why did I say deep dive? Why did I say 4 hours? I didn't say 4 hours because the job is easy. I said 4 hours because your policy, your SOP that you put in place is simple to understand, and it is the shortest distance to get from point A to point Z. Simple as that. And when you have that, then I'm a poor delegating micromanager owner, and I'm learning this when I know my people know what to do and I don't have to be the one they ask halfway through there, what do I do? I start to give them the room they need to do their jobs. So you have to. It's a hard thing to do, and not everybody can do it. There's a lot
mm.
of companies that fail because they can never get there. They can't let go. You have to let go. You have to learn how to let go.
Yeah. That is, man. I'm inspired, John. Continuing, let go, let go, let go. And William Taylor, thank you so much for being here. He said, when I have a thought about this topic, one non-negotiable, and this is when we were talking about selling your company, one non-negotiable would be that in the event of a sale, my leadership team would need to make more money than if I were to stay alive. And I love that he is thinking of the team because that's kind of how
Yep.
we feel here too. Like everyone needs to win no matter what. And he said from the book Traction EOS Planning, that is sometimes called letting go of the vine on the letting go part. So
Yep.
agree.
Different phrase, but it means the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You got to hold on. It doesn't work. The other key thing, and I'll just throw this in here at this point, is to be successful, it is not my SOP, okay? It's never my SOP. So what do I mean by that? When I've been in companies, running companies, owning companies, whatever it may be, whenever I had to put a process together so everyone knew what to do, it goes all the way back to Henry Ford. If you want to be able to learn how to improve your manufacturing floor, you got to get out on the floor and ask the people that are doing it, what can we do better? That's what I did. I started with my people. I talked to my field roofers. I talked to my foreman, my superintendent, my project managers, my administrators, my service department. I didn't start up top with my senior management team. They were the last ones that I talked to. And the same
Ooh.
thing would go now if I went and worked with any one of my clients and we're putting SOPs in. I do a lot of time interviewing the people in the trenches because it's really their SOP. And that's why it's so important that you have, again, what did we talk about? 6 months to get your plan in place, and you should
Hmm.
have it ready to go out within a year. You shouldn't be nothing more than tweaking it, right? That's a short period of time because I know people have been playing with this for 8, 10 years or more.
Yeah.
But the same thing goes with an SOP. It has to be reviewed a minimum of once a year because they are living documents.
Mm.
Yeah, man, this is good stuff. Okay.
I have a
Go
quick
ahead.
follow-up question to that, John. Do those need to be reviewed, by leadership, or is that by the people using the SOPs, those micro teams, or is it company-wide? What does that look like?
So at the point, once we've got all the SOPs in place and we're in the review, we're in the actually running them, going through them, and now it's time to review them. They would be in what you want to call micro groups, okay?
Okay.
So depending on whatever the SOP group was for, that group would have their own meetings with a group leader, however you want to look at it. It could be their direct supervisor or somebody that's
Yeah.
in charge of that team, and they would go through it. I would not go through that whole process again of talking to everyone and just getting multiple opinions. It'd be like, and the key to that is when somebody says this doesn't work, not, well, you're wrong. Okay, it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? And what's your idea to make it better? How do we do better? Right? Because
Hmm.
once people know that they're going to have to provide, and that's the solutions I want. I want someone to provide that's doing it every day. That's the
Yeah.
solutions I want, not what I think.
I love it. Wow. Okay. I just wanted real quick, Wendy said she agrees with William, clear policies and procedures. Also, sometimes we think we've delegated and we didn't communicate it well. I'm with you, Wendy. I've been there. LOL. And room to make suggestions for improvement after they know what to do. Yes. And that's what you just said, John. So, I mean, it's just so perfect. Now, let's talk a little bit about some
What a
of those.
great group we have here today. That much I
I
can say.
know. I know. I know. It's so
And I'm not
exciting.
talking about us, the
I know.
audience.
I'm
Thank
talking
I
about the folks
know.
out there. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about common pitfalls. John, what should we be watching for?
Number one, waiting too long to plan. It's like having a goal. What is a goal if you don't do anything to enact it? It's a dream. Same thing here. It's a dream, it's a wish. There's nothing ever going to happen. So you can't wait. You got to start. You need to start today. Okay, that's the key. Start writing things down. I love the term, I still use it. I'm old school, whiteboarding, right? You got to start jotting down what your thoughts are. You can't start anywhere without understanding where you want to go. Failing to align personnel and business goals. Yeah, that's your culture, right? Let's face it this way, that when you ever hire anybody, let's look, if you hire strictly upon talent or technical skills, you more than likely will fail. If they don't have what? The right attitude,
Yeah.
right?
Got
And I
it.
will always hire somebody with a great attitude, and I will teach them the technical skills that they need to succeed. That is a teachable skill. Attitude, I may get coaches out there or other people tell me, oh, no, I know from experience, I've never seen an attitude change. They may look like it changes, but it's still like that volcano underneath the earth. It's still bubbling, always, always there. So again, it has to align. Your culture, your vision, and your employees' vision have to be interlocked. What's a great way of knowing that? Go ask somebody what your core beliefs are. What are your vision of your company? If your employees can't recite it back to you, then that means one, it's either too complicated, or two, you haven't, what somebody said on here, well, you haven't communicated it. So if they don't know what's expected of them by the direction you want to go in, how can you expect them to succeed? They're not going to. Now, the other one, I'm not an expert on this, so this is for educational purposes only because I'm not an accountant and I'm not an attorney. But tax, yes, you got to, that's where you need that other part. You got to have a lawyer that specializes in this when you get to that point. But I don't want to go see my lawyer or my accountant until I have some sort of a plan laid out of where I want to be. The worst thing to do when someone's charging you a lot of money per hour is to sit there and have 3 hours of conversation and come out with nothing. It's better to go in prepared and say, this is what I'm thinking. What are your thoughts on it? So that you're getting the most value for your money. And don't be afraid to interview those experts, right? Your accountants. Just because your accountant's been your great business accountant doesn't mean they're the right one for succession planning. So
Hmm.
they may have to ask them, is this something you do, or can you recommend somebody within your network? So don't be afraid to ask the questions. And, I think Megan can really jump on this one, but not preparing for the next generation of leaders. I know what it looks like from my end, but I really want to hear Megan's perspective on this because she is that next generation.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that lean in. Yeah, so not preparing the next generation of leaders. I mean, that is a huge, that's what you need to be doing. Like John said, now it's a part of your plan. It's basically a part of that first bullet, of starting your plan, identifying who those next leaders are in your company and also in the industry, and connecting those leaders with a greater community outside of your company. That's that's when I really started to see myself grow within my company and my career, is when I kind of had started to create that outwardly community outside of my company through associations like National Women Roofing, Western States, NRCA, and getting those next leaders to follow in your footsteps. If you are a part of those, a part of associations on boards, can they take over your board seat? Can they start shadowing you at board meetings? Can they do things like that, and kind of see how you're making an impact not only in your business but outside of your business too, and how they can take that and run with it to go further.
Megan, spot on. And John, I mean, we are very proud of our young. We have a very Gen, I would say Gen Z, Gen Millennial group at the coffee shops, and I'm just so proud of them. In fact, we're totally outnumbered as Gen Xers. And it's that involvement in the industry too. That was one of the things we learned early on is especially for people who are writing and producing podcasts and stuff like that, if they don't have a vested interest in the industry, that's going to be hard for them to stay. And I think that's the truth. Once people get in roofing, they really stay. And so making sure you're preparing them, letting them be involved in that local association, right? It doesn't always have to be the owner. Let people get
Yeah.
involved with what's going on will only make them stronger as they continue to grow. Um, but we do have a question. I know I can't believe this hour has gone so fast. The question is from Nathan. What platforms should hands-on buyers use to find listings with real cultural fit? It's an interesting question. From a basic posting, how do you spot shared ethics? And when competing with private equity's polished plans, how does a buyer win with secured owner financing, putting up personal assets as collateral to offer the seller a safe and gradual exit? It's a big question.
Ooh. Yeah, break it into parts. First of all, I'll be honest, I don't know of any actual listing that's out there to connect it. There's usually a brokers that represent people want to sell their business. This has nothing to do with M&E. This is kind of like the middle person. There's people who specialize that, hey, I would go to them and say, I want to think about selling my business. Can you put me in touch with people that they know that are buying it? So I don't know if there's like a actual way of doing that, but I will tell you one way you can find out is going to industry events. All
Mm.
Hmm.
right. You absolutely, like any industry event, it doesn't have to just be IRE. A lot of times locally, especially if you're looking to regionally, depending where you want to purchase at, you go to those events and just put that word out and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about this." And you'll find and say, "Well, you know what? I just talked to Jack last week. He's really getting to that point. Why don't you go talk to them?" So I think word of mouth, face to face, going to industry events is probably your best bet. I don't know of any listing that you can go to. I think the last part of that was how can you line up as a
Hmm.
private buyer compared to I guess the big buyers? Was that pretty much it and summed up?
Yep, yep, yep.
Okay. So I will tell you, most roofing companies would prefer to sell to another roofing company if their legacy has anything to do with their sale.
Yep.
Okay, that's why I wanted to put that caveat in there because if they're strictly the only reason they put their plan together based on um let's see, based on just getting to the highest bidder, then there's nothing you're going to do to compete against that as far as cultural lineup because it's like go anything else. Their mindset is on price and price only. Same way, kind of in reverse, if we're selling to somebody, if their only value is price, then we probably are out of the game and we shouldn't even get into it. But if they have legacy, value, care about their company, want to stay part of it, you'll find out a lot of people are ready to sell, but they want to stay involved for another 10 years. they know they probably stand a better chance with somebody with the same values of them as being whether board, even as a board of director, an advisory role, whatever it may be. So I think you stand a really good chance. And I think I see a lot of companies moving in that direction of buying peer to peer.
Yeah, I can give you an example of this, and I agree 100%. It's about the associations. It's also about being here, right? Being part of the coffee shops and networking and getting to know the other folks in the R Club and the different people that are involved. But there was a contractor in Southern California who had the legacy, the employees, all of this was very important, was able to find actually two young men who were looking to get into the industry who actually purchased the business. It was a perfect cultural fit. The previous owner stayed long enough, but then kind of just transitioned away. The leadership that was there took really connected with these new owners, and they are seeing huge success. So I think there's a lot of companies out there who want that kind of transition, and I think that's really important. So Nathan, if you're on with a lot of the right people here, so we're more than happy to make those introductions because that's what we do in this industry to help people get connected.
Yep.
Um, okay, action plan for contractors, John. I'm trying to keep us on. This is so much fun. I'm trying to keep us so we don't go over an hour.
So again, conduct a readiness assessment. So let's break that down to what it really needs. You got to look at your business with open eyes. You need to look at it without any prejudice whatsoever, strictly like, is this business really working and what's not working? The hardest thing for anybody that owns a business or running a business is to be clear in their valuation of their actual business because you got to remember, you're going to have to hurt your own feelings or you're not going to have the right information you need to do it. So that's what really an assessment is. Go take a look at that business and look at it from open set of eyes, like you're at that third party view coming in and saying what's working, what's not working. Again, define your vision in your company's future. I can't stress this enough. We talked about that just before. If your people that are working for you don't have any idea what your future of your company is or your vision, and that I'm going to give a kick in there because he's on here all the time too. Ken Kelly, he said one of the biggest mistakes roofers make, and I agree with him, when they're doing this is not being open and honest to their team. The last minute when you say, hey, this is what we're doing, the deal's closing in 6 months, your team's already doing what? They're looking for a parachute out. Okay, they're
Hmm.
not part of the process, so they figure it's not going to work out. So you've got to define that and get everybody on board. You got to get the experts in there as much as people hate to hire experts. And I know when I was at the other end, that's why I became a consultant and do what I'm doing because I hated people that did what I did because they didn't understand roofing. But I have that advantage because I worked so long. That's what you want to make sure. Pick your experts that actually understand what we do, whether it's an attorney, an accountant, or a consultant. What's their experience level in what we do? And again, other than that, you said begin gradual leadership handoff and testing phases. Well, your leadership handoff is exactly what we talked about with Megan, right? Getting your younger generation prepared to come up and actually promote them when you say you're going to do or give them the responsibilities along whatever your plan is. Because people will always, always strive to do better if they see that the plan you're putting in place is actually being enacted. So again, your testing phase is after you say, I'm done with this plan. Your testing phase is your quarterly or bi-yearly meetings to say, is it working? Is it not working? What do we got to tweak? That's how you're testing it by using it every day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Megan,
No,
final
I was
thought?
just saying, wow.
Yeah, I know. Me too. We do have a couple more messages. Wendy encourages, yes, absolutely. Face to face is a great best way through the different shows. IRE is coming up. MetalCon, Megan pointed out for metal, and also, we're more than happy to help with introductions whenever we can. And Alana, thank you. This has been so interesting. Anxiously awaiting succession planning part two. Okay, and the Caribbean Roofers Coffee Shop.
Yeah.
So, um, thank you all so much. We do want to take just a minute and share with you these Affinity webinars have been going on now for a couple of years, John. We've just had so much
Yep.
fun doing these. And they are all available. If you are in the R Club, they are available to watch, so you can see past Affinity webinars on demand. But we also have a great partnership with John. We're so proud. He is our special contributing editor. I believe is what we had down there, John, a while ago. You just do so many things, I can't keep up. But John, if you want to, well, I guess I will start. Let me see here. Cotney to our club subscribers. So if you're in the R Club, you're going to get 15% off consulting services for business services, training, and risk management from John. You're going to get one free financial risk analysis. Cool. One free operational risk analyst and one free software technology analysis, along with complimentary quarterly webinars focused on business and operation topics, which you're in right now. So, John,
Mhm.
you've had a number of our club folks come and do a lot of this with you, along with just contractors overall who have been involved with Roofers Coffee Shop. This is a huge benefit.
Yeah, and you want to join the art club. All right. Why do you want to join the art club? From my perspective, we do peer meetings in there. We do trainings besides what you're getting here. And the best, we just talked about this, as a matter of fact, before we started, the best excitement that I get is when I see somebody purchase even one of my online products and take the Roofers Coffee Shop discount. And like it works. That's what it's here for. It's here for you to take advantage of. So again, I can't stress enough what a great opportunity it is to work through Roofers Coffee Shop.
Oh, we love
Oh,
working with you, John.
we do, we do. Although I don't think anyone loves you more than Alex. She
So
thinks you're
true.
the bee's knees right there. Um, but we also want to encourage everybody, when you are part of that R Club, you, as an R Club member, you get the full directory. You're on Ask a Roofer, 30-minute consultations, discounts and classified ads, networking, peer forums, coffee breaks, quarterly trainings with John. So please. You can find it all at rooferscoffeeshop.com, RCS, Cotney, Affinity, or just reach out to any of us. It's easy. Megan at Roofers Coffee Shop, Heidi at
Yep.
rooferscoffeeshop.com, and we can help you all out. John, Megan, this has been so much fun. Thank you.
This has
Yeah,
been
my
amazing.
pleasure.
John, you're so wise. Thank you for all the knowledge and wisdom that you're imparting on all of us. And everyone, please make sure to go check out the Cotney Consulting Group directory to find all this information on everything that John does and all of the great articles he writes for us and other webinars. So much stuff.
So
Thank you.
thank you. And thank you all. Thank you for being here today. Let us know if you need anything, introductions, our club membership, what, John, we can get you there. Thank you so much and have great holidays. We'll see you again soon.
Bye now.
Thanks all.